Hi, Lawrence.
How are you? Good to be here.
Thank you for being here. So we're here at Collettivo Chiaroscuro. My name is Luca Ciuti. We have Lawrence Sher here, and we're about to talk about the new Joker movie, Folie Deux. Um, so, Lawrence, how did you film this? I mean, how? Well, tell me something about this first, because I got loads of questions, but I don't know if
Let's jump in. So it's a sequel to Joker, which was came out in 2019 and 2020. And what we did as far as our intention was to extend the look, right? So we shot with the same cameras, Harry 65, some LFs for like a third camera. We shot very similar lenses, or we added some Hasselblads that were made by my rental house, Auto Mamens. They call them Autoblads. But we still had this sort of mixture of lenses from Canon CP2s to Nikors to Leica Rs. And a lot of that was based on sort of finding this mix match of vintage lenses from the 80s and 70s that weren't too clean. I kind of could solidify that look of the 70s and 80s in Gotham. And so we continued that vibe. The only big difference fundamentally, besides the internal mechanics of the movie, was we really shot with the intention of IMAX. So we framed 220,
Yes.
but to expand to 190 in IMAX screens, and then in 40 screens, it'll expand all the way to 143. So
nice.
that was different than the first one, which we shot just spherical 185. This was spherical, but really will change aspect ratio for IMAX screens. So we really did think about IMAX when we made this movie. And then, the biggest difference, obviously, is there's music in the movie. I don't know if I'd still call it a musical, but there's definitely music in the movie. You've seen it, so you know. And there's some singing diegetically within scenes, in which the actors sing within a scene. And then there's a couple fantasy sequences in which they're singing in a more sort of heightened area. And for that, partly it's one of the reasons why we wanted to shoot IMAX, but also it allowed opportunities for a bunch of different sort of approaches to camera movement, as well as certainly lighting as well.
It's very interesting what you're saying about the format helping out for also the musical part of it. What I really liked was the use of diegetic lighting that turned out to be show lighting.
Right.
Within the story. So all of a sudden you come from a real dimension, so to speak, to fantasy, but within the construct of reality. It's kind of, you don't go, of course, there are some fantasy sequences as such, but a lot of them are a mixture of, what is it? Is it real? Is it, you kind of wonder as you're watching the movie.
Yeah, like anything, when my approach to any movie is to attack it the way an actor would attack their role, right? It's to look at it and think, okay, from a cinematography standpoint, from lighting, composition, any of the elements of the language that we use as cinematographers, how can we tell the arc of the character at the same time? So the movie begins with Arthur coming, we see him now in Arkham, and he's gaunt and skinny, and he's looking very bad. And his life is what you would expect living in this terrible asylum. And so we start the approach in a darker way, long, unbroken shots, kind of the mundanity of his life day to day, sort of drugged up and living in an insane asylum for the criminally insane, which he is. And until he starts to find and be introduced to Harley, played by Lady Gaga. And then the approach to lighting sort of subtly, expands based on that. So as you watch the film, and without giving too much away, you'll see some of those same things, which are some would actually be a little bit theatrical in the same way as the music plays in the sense of as you look to see when she's introduced and the amount of light that comes into the film when she's introduced and when she's in the frame and when their dynamic shifts, when they fall more in love and all of those things, some of the theatrics come in even to scenes that have no music at all.
Sure.
And so that idea of the theatrical aspect, which is, for Arthur Fleck and for Joker, and it's an extension of the first movie, he's living as if he's on stage,
Yes.
right? Either as a comic or as somebody who, we spend a lot of time seeing him on screens, whether it's like being photographed by an interviewer early in the movie,
Yes.
or being interviewed by Patty Nolan, Steve Coogan's character. There's a sense that his life is part of TV, is part of his life. He sees Murray Franklin in the first movie, fantasizes about being on Murray Franklin. So this extension of what Arthur sees is extended in the movie, and that idea of theatrical lighting and being on stage, even when he's in a courtroom or even when he's in a jail cell, plays into the sort of the decisions that we made from a lighting standpoint.
Amazing. I noticed that when you have Harley, when Lee comes in the picture of on an artist's life, I had sensed that somehow his life become warmer. There's an element of fire getting in. I mean, every time she's around, there's an element of red or an element of related to fire. I mean, of course, she's an arsonist, so that's part of her character, but that's also, I think, reflected into the lighting. And all those moments there are very warm and kind of romantic, in his mind, the way you see it, whereas they're very much in contrast with the exteriors. They're kind of bleak,
Yes.
decided they're very bleak and cold and, unwelcoming, so to speak.
For sure, and that was by intention, right? So the early part, the first warmth of the movie is when he's walking down a cool hallway in the rain. He
Yes.
goes through the rain to get to her ward, which is the B ward, and at the end of the hallway, intentionally, trying not to be too overt, but obviously, as somebody who's a fan of color,
Yeah.
a fan of Storaro, a fan of like people who embrace color and its emotional connection to people. Yeah, it's like a cold hallway with a warm light at the end. There's something down there that's calling to him, and that's the first time some warm light hits his face, and it's the first time he sees her. So yes, it's certainly by intention, and there's other places in which there's red because she's danger, and
The dress is red at the end when she comes to the
exactly. And so there's all those elements that we talked about in the same way with all the coordination of production design and costume design. So yeah, it's funny because as somebody who works very intuitively as far as a cinematographer, like I do like to create rules for myself, and I like to sort of construct a path for the lighting and an idea of each courtroom scene is a different time of day or a different type of lighting, and it balances with what the context of the scene is. But sometimes, and it certainly is true with Todd Phillips and I, when you talk about it outwardly, it seems so sort of almost cerebral and a little too much like film school, like whatever, even though I respect all the filmmakers that do that, like as I said with Storaro. So even talking about the rationale behind it sometimes makes me feel like a little embarrassed, because I hope that it's slightly more subtle than it is when we talk about it overtly. But yes, I like to create constraints and I like to create reasons for every single lighting decision, even if they're just for myself and even if they're just a way for me to understand the scene a little and create boundaries. And so, yeah, in every courtroom scene, there's a reason. If in every scene in which Harley and Joker are together, there's a reason and a choice of why the color is there and what her color is versus his color and the way that they balance in the scene.
Now, I have to say, yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. When you talk about it, it might feel a bit, sometimes too much, right? You can be overly sort of, exaggerated. But at the same time, the film needs that. It's very consistent, and I guess also, I've seen the use of complementary colors all throughout the movie, also as a production design standpoint. So it's not just about the lighting. I was struck by the fact that when they're in a fantasy world and singing on stage, even the curtains in the background, there is one blue curtain.
Yeah.
So there's always warmth, but there's always a touch of coolness in it. So I guess that's something that you guys have thought about?
Well, and the movie, as you know now, I'm seeing it, and this is no different, really. This is an extension of the first movie, is about the power struggle we have with our shadow self, right? And that we all have a shadow version of ourself, whether that's the darkest version of ourself, whether that's the version of ourselves we're most scared of, or maybe that's the version of ourselves that's actually the most real, right? And this sort of fight between ourselves and our shadow selves, and that idea of what is the shadow self color versus what is, like, the other complementary color, and what those battles are, and that is shown through wardrobe, whether it's his red suit and his makeup versus like where he is when he's in the darker place, and they fight with each other throughout the whole movie, those two forces. And so we always like to sort of bring those into color, and for me color is the same as light. It's one more extension of the power and the language that we have as cinematographers, right? It's another really important piece of what we do. It's like there's camera movement, there's lighting, but then there's color in between the two. And so I embrace color wherever I can. Yeah.
That was amazing. I had a sense, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm mistaken. I almost had a sense that when he becomes his own attorney and he defends himself, his suit is redder than normal.
There's a little of that, and it's also, and I don't think it's a spoiler so much, but like when he becomes his own attorney, it's also the first time we see him. That shot of him sitting behind the desk alone now as an attorney is the first time he has backlight sitting in that chair.
Yes.
And it's like the most theatrical looking of shots, right? So he's
on stage.
Exactly. He's now finally, in the place he wants to be, which is performing and on stage as Joker. And so even that, which is, I think, not super overt, but it's hopefully people will pick up on it, subconsciously. Yeah, it's like that frame has a sense of theatrics in the same way as some of the fantasy scenes have, with the same way, backlight and powerful sort of spotlights and those kind of things.
I mean, when he, of course, we don't want to spoil it too much. Maybe we're not going to add this in the interview. I don't know. But for instance, it seems to me that when everything around him loses color, is when he loses confidence in himself and he's a bit more dejected and his power kind of drains out from him.
Yeah, I think that's really like when the audience watches it. I think it's an interesting thing just to think about, not think about, let it be subconscious. Is those kind of decisions, because I think they are there, and without giving away too much, because here we are still advanced of the movie coming out.
Yeah. We're not going to publish it before the movie's out.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, then listen, the movie will be out, and it's a different story. But
we will publish this.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I think that's precisely right. It's like there's a certain power he has when he's Joker that he doesn't have when he's Arthur Fleck. And so, yes, when he's Arthur, he possesses less color and he possesses less power. Yeah, for sure.
One of the scenes I loved most, lighting-wise, although it's a simple scene, but it's when they first talk to each other in the hallway. And that seemed to me almost as if all of a sudden we are in a kind of a normal world.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you wanted to come across with, but everything else is more, how can I say, it's more heightened in terms of senses. You got more color, you got more contrast. But in that moment, and she is sitting on this windowsill, backlit with this nice bounce on her face, and he looks at her completely, I think, struck by her personality, how she is. The lighting that you did there, it reflects that.
Yeah, I mean, in there, it's like we wanted it to feel just completely naturalistic.
Natural, yes.
Yeah, it's as if, and that's also the intention for a lot of the movie, even though there are some heightened moments, and it's like that scene, of course, is so much about their connection. Mm-hmm. So that scene is in most part about basically close-ups all the way to like ECUs,
Yeah.
And so the ability of saying, well, okay, it's a nice window lit wall, hallway, We cross-shot it in places. We cross-shot a lot of the movie, which, of course, for a cinematographer, as you know, is often like, unless you're forced into it by a director, unwillingly with like a gun to your head, you'll rarely shoot, like cross-shoot. We would do it all the time. And there's so many scenes. There's scenes in the holding cell when they're talking to each other. It's in the trailer, you know, where she says, you know, you're a Joker, you can do anything you want, you know, and they do that little kiss with the smoke. That's cross shot. That's two cameras cross shooting at the same time. Those close-ups are shot simultaneously. And in that hallway, it's similar. Just for performance, because for us, like, and this did start in the first Joker, and it's been part of like Todd Phillips, the director, and I's plan from a long time ago, which is to, as much as possible, create a situation where the lighting is environmental.
Okay.
So
you're free to move and
free to go from like the biggest wide shot of the space into an ECU in the same shot.
Amazing.
Right? And so, you know, what I try to do with my team is basically light the space in such a way that I know it'll hold up in a close-up, and then work backwards to the wide shot and make sure the units are hidden as best as possible. And so that when we start, we can go through whatever coverage we need to complete the scene with almost no time in between. The time it takes to change the lens, no rehearsing, no setting marks, the dolly moves, everything is happening in real time. Often I have headsets that I'll talk to the operators, and I operate one camera, so that makes it easy too. So that we're making real-time decisions in real time with the actors just based on their performance. So for us, it's like the first take is always the first time we're all seeing it for the first time. And there might be, if Todd and Joaquin and Gaga have a conversation, and maybe that conversation is 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe, that's my opportunity to make little tweaks. Yeah, from the first take. Because I usually know, okay, the first take's also when they discover some things.
Yes, sure.
And that's when I can make little changes. And it's sort of, I know about how long they're going to talk. And I go, okay, I can fix this. And then I'll try to do little tweaks throughout the performance and throughout the scene. But that environmental sort of like, okay, starting from a place of naturalism, starting a place from where are the windows, where are the you know, fluorescent lights in the space. And this all starts in pre-production, really in concert with the production designer, having conversations all the time about where are we putting windows?
Yes.
Where are we putting fluorescents? Where are we putting lights? So that in between, like, so even the time it takes to just switch the camera to the other side or turn a set around, that we can do very quickly by presetting lights and then just turning them on, or sometimes cross-fading them into like...
So you must have everything on board. So
it's like, it's a perfect example of like how technology has changed like the creative process of like, because even the difference between Joker 2019 and Joker Folie, you know, we did use majority 10Ks, 5Ks, zips, and sort of lighting that was more tungsten based for that reason. The reason I switched to coming back and using a lot more LEDs was simply for that control.
I see.
So that in a real-time shot, you think of a shot like The Joker Is Me, which is like a long push in as he's smoking in silhouette, and then he dances around and picks up Harley, and it's this whole sequence inside the courtroom. There's a perfect example of cross-fading spotlights and bringing lights up onto her and none of that is happening on cues based on something that's pre-programmed. It's all happening live because it's all happening when the camera comes and finds. And so we needed the control of a bunch of types of lighting that we could constantly crossfade and have color control over.
So you have your board operator on comms.
Oh yeah.
So you can direct him on as you go along, right?
Exactly. So like there's a little team, including myself, who's sitting by a DIT monitor, right? And so I have both monitors for both cameras, and if there's a third camera, I'll see that as well. My gaffer's sitting next to me. The board operator's right next to him. We all have these headphones on. The dolly grip and the crane operator, if we're on a crane, they also have these headphones on. The ACs all have these headphones on. And it's whisper quiet. So in real time, we're saying, okay, all right, let's push in slowly. Okay, hold on. Okay, move a little faster. Now start to come around, crossfade these lights. And it's just like this little coordinated effort of like 7 people, and including even focus pullers, like, okay, I'm going to start pushing in so they know we're starting to push. And okay, I'm going to start to stop, and we'll count down the stop so they're all coordinated. And we're just doing this, and every take, we might start now from a whole different position in the set and do the same thing from another position to get a different piece of coverage. And every time it's no rehearsals, and every time it's in real time. And it's super, super exciting. And it means that every one of those people is like an actor on set, meaning they have to deliver every take. And they have to be,
it's a dance.
Yeah, it's a dance between, it's jazz between all these performers. And ourselves included, from a cinematography team, and that made it one of the most fun shoots I've ever had.
It's amazing, Larry. You know, one would have thought that a film like this is completely blocked out, is completely storyboarded or something like this. You know, whereas you're telling me that I think also because of your long-standing relationship with Todd, you're a unit, you understand each other very well, that you can go along, you can do it, you can decide things as you go along. But this is amazing because, most of these superhero movies, you always imagine, of course, it's not a superhero movie,
Right.
don't get me wrong, but I mean, comic book movie, whatever you go, although it's a completely different approach, you might have thought for various reasons you want to know everything in advance.
Well, and even when you see the final movie, it has a sense of precision.
Yes,
right?
that's what I mean.
It's like it's not like you see all these things as singular takes. They're often cut into pieces of coverage.
There's a coherent language to it.
But the process by which we made it was completely improvisational. Right. Amazing. It's like, and now with that said, Todd and I have worked together for 15 years, so we know each other very well. And what I know is we're not going to waste a wide master, because if we do it 4 or 5 times, we've wasted that time on set. So what I've grown over time is like, okay, could I shoot a wide master and put another camera in a place that the wide master doesn't see it?
I see.
Even if it's on the other side of the line, or even if it's like on a 280 mil lens while the wide master is on a 35, because then it means if Joaquin or Gaga does a great performance, we've captured it closer at the same time as having something wide that Todd might use for 3 seconds at the top of the scene or somewhere in the middle. So it allows us to get coverage, to give the editorial options, to give Todd a way to shape the scene and give the language of the film, which is always important. And Todd is fantastic as far as using wide shots and giving the audience a real sense of geography. And he's really good at using coverage. And so, but we're trying not to shoot coverage just to sort of like plot through a specific shot where we need it. Instead, we want to give the option of using it where it's most effective. And so because of that, we've created this over time. And I think this movie was kind of like the extension of all of the things we've been practicing for a long time, which was to create something that feels precise, but actually is the opposite.
It's
right?
free.
Yeah, it's completely free. Yeah, exactly. And so
it's great.
And it came also out of just the main objective, which is to give the actors the most amount of freedom and the most amount of time performing, right? So that, that they're not waiting on lighting, they're not waiting on us, that we can give them the most amount of time, and Todd the most amount of time to explore the scenes in every way he wants to. Yeah, so interesting. But it was also for our crew, and I had the best crew I've ever had. Super fun. I know to a person, they were like, this was as exciting a movie as we've gotten a chance to make, because everyone, every take is super involved and super focused.
Yes.
It's not like, sometimes you light, you get everything ready, and then everyone sits on an apple box and just sort of waits.
Yeah.
This is like everybody is like, okay, it's time to perform. And it was really, really fun.
That's awesome. What T-stop did you use? Do you have one particular?
I think, I went back and I looked at some of the camera reports, and, generally speaking, I live in sort of a 2.8 and a third, 2.8 and 2/3, depending if I go to the 280, which is a very popular lens for us, or the 350, I'll go to a 4.2 or a 5.6. I often, because it's Area 65, it's a large format sensor, and because, you know, I can see it in real time, I'll sometimes make those decisions based on just the backgrounds and, you know,
You might change it.
exactly. So there are opportunities, and sometimes it's very specifically shooting wide open, and then there are other times where I close it down so that it just looks more natural. So but I'm not one of those people who shoots super wide open. You know, there are certain situations, night exteriors, like when they sort of escape from and they dance in the rain and that whole thing.
That's
where
great.
we might need a little extra stop, and but even there, we're probably at a two.
I like that. Going back to what we said at the beginning of the interview, I really love that the trick that you did with searchlights.
Yeah.
You know, and actually a spotlight on them as if they were on
That's
a
right.
theater stage, and that was amazing because at first I thought, oh, you know, there's a photo spot or something, and then because you start when you're closer up, and then you go back to wide, and you kind of see all the searchlights. So this is what I meant that by not being sure at the beginning, is it fantasy or is it
I think
real?
that's exactly the intent of what we were looking for, which is, all right, you know, they run outside of Arkham, and we want it to feel authentic and also work again first and foremost from a place of reality, right? So for us and our team, we're sitting and the production design team, we're going, okay, what's a real life building like this, a government building, you know, a jail or something like that? Where would be like the practicals around the space? And of course, if somebody tried to escape, well, there'd be searchlights. So then it's like, okay, that, you know, the idea is like, okay, well, when can those searchlights find them? And when do they miss them? So when they first come out, we are literally talking to also to those people now have headsets on.
Okay.
And my gaffer and I are saying, okay, sweep there and miss them. And okay, they're coming around here. So even a shot like, which is like a shot where they hide between these two cars, it's like we're literally calling the searchlights, like searchlight 1. And then when they hide, we know that if we hit searchlight 4, it misses them, but goes over the top of the car and adds some blue light for the foreground.
Yeah.
And if we send it to the background, now it silhouettes them. So we're doing that in real time, you know?
Nice.
And then when they get up, it's like they want to be caught. They want to now be in the spotlight, right? They're like, that's also her intention.
Yes.
And so now we're going to fire them all on them at some point. And then now they're dancing in this almost like glow of overexposed.
It's
xenon.
amazing. It's very high in terms of exposure, but it works perfectly because it gives you this magical moment.
Yeah, and it's also a magical moment for their connection.
For that connection,
it's like lighting them on fire. Exactly. But that's like, and then, you know, even the final shot of that sequence, and it's a really big wide shot. You see these 4 points of spotlight. It's very much like almost like you're seeing a play.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
That's
like a very theatrical lighting for like a, you know, what's supposed to be a harsh world. Yeah.
So you mentioned, you know, you like the 280 mostly. Did you have, I mean, besides that, what lenses you mostly use?
There's like five. There's like 5 hero lenses.
Okay.
All right. There's like a 58 Nikkor, which is very fast, like a 1.2, really close focus, like 10 inches. That lens is like the hero lens for anything where we're going really intimate and close to him. So if you think about, there's like interview stuff with Patty Nolan where we're moving in close and he's really sort of like where we really want to connect with him or her emotionally. That's usually that 58. Wide shots are like a 35 Canon CP2. There's a 80 DNA, which is we used a lot for sort of like longer than the 58 for close-ups and stuff, but still intimate. There's a macro 90 Leica. And then we would go to the 150 Autoblad, which is like a Hasselblad lens, and then the 280. And then there's like a vintage, like a signature, I guess it's like Airy Rental vintage 765, 350, which was closer focused than the 280. So sometimes we'd use the 350. So like in the visiting room, when she puts the lipstick on the glass and he smiles, that's a 280 on him and a 350 on her.
Oh, I love that. I thought, at the beginning, did they do it for real or did they paint it after?
No, 100% for real. And in fact, the take that's in the movie, I think is take 1. Maybe we only did it 3 times. And I remember when because obviously each time we put it on, it was like a reset. And it wasn't that fast to reset the glass. And like, you know, because it's lipstick. So I remember like while we were lining it up, of course we just did it on the first take. But like, I remember Todd and Joaquin were sort of, and Gallo were sort of figuring out where on the thing could be. But the first take we did it, we just tried it. So she did it because obviously it happens at the end of the scene, and she put it on, and Joaquin sort of moved over, and I went, oh, and I remember because you could hear it even on the dailies. Everyone sort of was like, oh, like it worked. Yeah. And it was like, okay. And I think we did it 2 more times, but I think the takes that's in the movie is take 1. And I remember thinking this is going to take a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
And no, it was sort of like, it was easier than you would think.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then the only thing that we did, which is simple, is like a tiny bit in the DI to just enhance the red.
The red, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like when it went on the thing, it's like a little bit pale. It didn't quite have that, but that's like a minor thing that we can do. Yeah.
Who did you color this with?
With Jill Bogdanovich at Company 3, which she's done many more movies, going way back, and she did Joker and many others. So yeah, so to maintain the look.
Yeah, the look is amazing. Color is great.
Yeah, well, she knows. We both like color a lot. So
yeah.
It's easy for when you. It's like the same reason with our whole crew and myself and Todd. It's like when you work with people for a long time, there's a secondhand, language that you don't even have to speak anymore. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. So thank you so much. I think I don't know. Is there anything something we missed?
Trying to think.
I mean, I can go on for all day because of course it's always so much fun. But let me. How long was the shoot?
The shoot was for Todd and I the longest shoot we've had, which was 75 days.
75.
Yeah, and we shot in Los Angeles and New York. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it was really, there's some stages that Mark Friedberg, the production designer, built that were really spectacular, and sets that feel 100% real, and as if we shot them on location. But having the full control of being able to be on stage and shoot in the way that we wanted to shoot. So, there's Arkham, big sets in Arkham in the courtroom that are built on stage. Yeah.